I think that the hate piece, less hate, we're out on a limb on that one. Actually, we are out on a limb because the world's moving toward let's find more hate and hate it, and then hate the haters. But I think that's a very interesting thing because we have followed Antifa, talked about it. The when they shut down Milo at Berkeley, that I just thought that was incredibly frightening, and I don't mean just that event, but the way that people dealt with that event, and and I hearken back when that happened. You had people who weren't wearing a Trump hat, who were being beat up because they thought, well, they might have been coming to a speech that they didn't want them to come to, without any real knowledge of whether that was the case or not, in the home of the free speech movement. So I mean that's scary. But I immediately harken back to what happened in San Jose and a Trump rally where the police decided not to show up and protect people. And if you recall, there were all kinds of incidents of people being beaten up and attacked on the street. There was the incident that I think probably most people are familiar with, of the woman who was egged by a crowd of angry men. And part of the time she was outside the windowed opening of the entrance of a hotel. And I thought, all these people, these men standing behind the glass, I'm not Mr. He-Man bravery, but, I think chivalry shouldn't be completely dead and should have gone out and protected this woman. And eventually she did go inside. But it's just, we live in a society in which very few people seem to condemn a crowd of men throwing eggs at a woman and hitting her in the face and screaming at her and calling her horrible names and stuff. And I really don't need to know what her politics was to know that that's not what you're supposed to do. And then it just seems to get worse and worse. And I do think that part of it is it's not attacked. It's not, they get a free pass in the media land. And on my Facebook page, in talking about some of the incidents, the incident with the reporter who was beaten up, potentially has some brain damage or some lasting damage because of that in Portland. Somebody said, hey, that's not Antifa. That was a bunch of anarchists. Well, I don't, every time that there are mass people calling themselves Antifa, I don't hear anybody from Antifa saying that's not us. It's, we have a group of people that gets fairly decent press as being anti-fascist, and what they do is go around and act like fascists. And I don't mean ideologically, I mean beating up people and deciding that we should have streets in which you're scared to say what you think. And that's not America. That is a fascist land, and it's being created and enforced by Antifa. It's, when I'm saying it doesn't matter what, I meant it doesn't matter what her ideology is. She could be a communist, which I think is just a completely bankrupt, evil, terrible ideology. She could be a Nazi or a neo-Nazi, which is a horrible, horrible ideology. It doesn't mean that you then can beat that person to a pulp. That is a recipe for devolving into a society. It reminds me of the Weimar Republic in Germany. Not that I'm that old, but historically, where you have street fights to determine how we're going to govern ourselves. And I think I kind of marked the beginning of it with the rally that Trump had in San Jose, in which the police decided not to protect people who went to that event. And as I've said from time to time, I didn't vote for Trump. I hope, I plan to praise him when he does good stuff and complain about him and attack him when he does bad stuff. But, this idea that somehow because you don't like someone's political position, it's okay to beat the hell out of them, that is not the American way. And we really need to all get together on that. We talked weeks ago about what's happening in Hong Kong, and before that, we had talked about the 30th anniversary of Tiananmen Square. And I think what I find so powerful about those events is that it requires a certain courage and a certain unity. What you're trying to do is to unite enough that you can stop the people with the power and the guns and the batons and the torture chambers from turning your society into hell. And we need to appreciate that in America. We've not had to have that level of solidarity in order to enjoy our freedoms. But I think as we move forward and we see this devolution into, street fights, into a reporter, a person filming who is, usually in protests, when someone's filming it, you like it because the whole idea of a protest is to get your message out. When so-called protesters beat the hell out of someone who's filming, which would help get their message out, it sends an unmistakable signal that they don't want to transmit a message. They want to beat their way into power of some kind. And that is the antithesis of everything that Americans want, from the far right to the far left and in between. You couldn't go find 100 Americans where there would be more than one or two who would think that made any sense. And yet I think we have a media that is far too quick to decide which side the people being beaten up are on before they decide that it's wrong to beat them up.